I do know a few people who've seen insane explosions on social media because they timed a wave really well. First of all, the key is having a British or Australian accent.
It really is.
That's it. That's a cheat code. For the
It
rest
is a cheat code, isn't it?
We're fucked. Like, there's no hope, okay?
Welcome to the Coach 'em Up podcast. My name is Tim Riley. Real quickly, before I have the honor of introducing today's guest, we've got some things we have to discuss, something we have to clear the air about, something pivotal to this podcast. There are, in fact, two kinds of people on planet Earth. There are subscribers and there are non-subscribers. Our analytics tell us many of you have subscribed, but so many more of you have not. You don't have to continue living like this. There's a better way to live life. Go ahead, subscribe, do the right thing, make your family proud, join us on the winning side. It helps us, it's free to you. And also, I've encouraged many of you in the past that if a friend, loved one, coworker, manager happens to leave their phone unattended, don't be a creep. Don't go on their phone and check their text messages. Give them the gift that keeps on giving. Go to YouTube, open up the app, go to Spotify, open up the app, subscribe them. And one day, you'll hear them talking about the podcast and you'll know you have spread some good in the world. Now that that's out of the way, I am so thrilled, excited to announce today's guest, Andrew Coates. Andrew, what's up, brother?
I'm a subscriber. And I've been, for real, I've been listening for a while, so it's a cool honor to be here.
Fellow subscriber, and now guest on the show. And actually, we met. You were kind enough to have me on your show. And what an excellent job you do as a host, my friend. Truly. It was, I've been on many. I really
hope after 8 years of doing this that I actually am passable at this stuff.
It took, you know what, though? You've been doing it for 8 years, which, by the way, anyone who knows anything about the podcasting space, most shows don't make it past like 5 or 10 shows. I mean, you know, the fact you've had that longevity, when do you feel like you hit your stride?
I don't know. I mean, first of all, I think that it would be, there's going to be a lot of stuff in here about my career that I think other coaches would probably it would be a terrible idea to follow because I pretty much, I feel very cliche, like the turtle on top of the fence post. Sometimes I look around and like, I don't know how I got up here. I don't really belong here, but here we are. So
here we are.
A friend of mine asked me to start a podcast with him over 8 years ago. Mm-hmm. Shout out Dean Guido, awesome human being. And so we did. And by virtue of my travels in the industry, my connections, some of our first guests, I mean, Dean Somerset is local to Edmonton. He was number one. We had Dr. Mike Isertel and Sohee Lee within the first 10 episodes, right? And
huge.
This is back at a time when, you had Danny Lennon's Sigma Nutrition Radio and the Fit Cast, Kevin Larrabee, and a lot of the OG stuff. And of course, Joe DeFranco being, the icon he is. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't like everybody had a podcast back then.
Yeah, so man.
We got huge downloads right off the hop, and then, piled in other big guests in our industry, contacts and what have you. And we kept going. We had a very regimented routine to record. And then after 150 episodes, my friend, he was about to start a family. So he said, hey, I really want you to continue this on, but I got to bow out.
Yeah.
So renamed it, pivoted it. And just due to, again, the connectivity of the industry and showing up and supporting other people. I've been traveling to conferences for years. The reason why I'm here is tomorrow I will be with the RP Strength crew, Dr. Mike Isertel, Nick Shaw, Crystal Guevara, they're great friends of mine and a sponsor of mine. And so they invited me to come down and you and I were talking, you wanted me to come on, I'm in Austin, boom, let's do it. And then Nick Shaw is recording with you later today.
He is.
Nick's one of my best friends in the industry. He's a great human.
I haven't had the opportunity. I'm looking forward to sitting down with him. But quick story about Mike. So Mike came on your show when you were just getting started.
Yeah.
Mike, I owe a lot of the initial success of our show to Mike. I cold DM'd Mike. He doesn't know me from Adam. He fucking responded, first of all, said he'd love to come on the show. And initially he couldn't do it, right? He had a time conflict. And then he said to me, again, he doesn't know me. He said, next time in Austin, I'll let you know. And I'm thinking, that's kind of him. I'll probably never hear from him again. Wrong. 2 months later, he DMs me unprompted, said, hey man, I'm going to be in Austin. Do you still want to record? the show was still so small. He had nothing to gain. He took it, and he's obviously very successful, very busy. He took time out of his busy schedule to prioritize coming on our show, and they did everything he could for months after to continue to promote that content. And it struck me. I thought, here's this guy. If he had told me no and just said no thanks, I would have totally understood. But he went out of his way to make it happen.
If you look at our industry, and I think our industry is full of incredible, abundant-minded coaches who will show up, consume, support, right? And I think that's going to be your listenership. But we also have a world, we exist within an ecosystem that also has a lot of me first, status chasing, transactional people. Mike's been around for a long time. Mike got on my radar, well over a decade ago, right? RP Strength, I have their books. And I met him because he came to Edmonton, did a seminar with Dean Somerset, and went there, spent the whole weekend there, got out to have dinner with him, got to know him, got him on social media. And a funny story is back in 2019, and by this point, podcast running for a couple of years, I'm already writing for T Nation. And I decided I need to have like at least a consistent social media presence to go along with these other things.
Yes.
And so I rode the wave of the Twitter style posts that, I mean, now it's really ubiquitous, but at the time there was like a smaller number of people who would just pivot away from the 2017 infographic craze that got really watered down really fast, right?
Yeah.
And so that first year of me posting, Mike took my posts, put it on his wall, tagged me right at the top of the caption numerous times, and drove thousands of followers my way over the course of the year. And that's what actually seeded the growth. He just liked the stuff. In his own words, he wasn't trying to make me. He just liked it, would share it, abundant mind.
And then was kind and thoughtful enough to actually give you credit.
He will come on. Yeah, absolutely. Right. A lot of people just plagiarize straight up. Right.
That's right. That's right.
But Mike has been thoughtful, abundant minded. He's been coming on everybody's podcast for years.
Yeah.
You now see him everywhere. He's on Modern Wisdom. They have the monstrous YouTube channel of success, but
huge.
RP have been a really successful company for a really long time.
Yep. They're
of service minded. They do good work. They've been writing books. They've been doing educational seminars. They came to Calgary near where I am in Edmonton in 2018 and 2019. I went down again, hung out with them. And then 2020, it would have been late 2022 because all the COVID stuff. We're going to forget about that. Nick Shaw, who'd become a friend of mine, he'd been on my podcast. He invited me to come down to an RP event they were doing at the Olympia.
Yeah.
And so went down there. First time I got to meet Crystal Guevara. First time I actually got to meet Nick in person. They're amazing people. So I actually had Crystal speak at my conference the last couple of years. She is absolutely dynamite. I'm very proud to do this, but some of the events that I was involved with connected both Crystal and Nick up with speaking opportunities. So it's gotten them out there more, and they deserve it, right? Because everybody looks at Mike.
Sure.
The whole team is incredible. And for me, it's been, I'm just always showing up because I'm interested in learning. I'm interested in being in these spaces, connecting with people who are on the same journey that I've been on for a really long time. Because Edmonton's a great city. There's a lot of great coaches there, but not everybody shares the kind of goals and the ambition that, as sort of come along with the ride, you realize, wait a second, all this stuff is possible. So I kept getting on planes and kept showing up to things, and good people tend to then involve you in more stuff as you do it. And again, off air, you were talking about, how to choose guests. I get a lot of messages, and they're well-intentioned, and some of them are mean well, and some of them it's very status seeking, me for stuff.
Sure.
But people will message you and go, hey, if you're ever looking for a podcast guest, or one of my pet peeves is someone I've never interacted with before.
I feel like I know what you're going to say.
Interaction is, hey man, if you're looking for a speaker for your event, right? Failing to understand the limited supply of speaking spots and budget to do this sort of thing. And I have to prioritize. I don't want to lose a ton of money. So therefore I have to have big names. I've had, some of your previous guests, including Luca Hosevar.
Shout out Luca.
Shout out Muscle Doc Jordan Shallow, who's incredible.
Yep.
I've had people like Don Saladino speak at my event. And there's a whole bunch of really iconic Canadian figures. Again, Dean Somerset's local Lee Boyce. Jonathan Goodman spoke out at the last couple of years. He's a great friend. So I have the opportunity to get access. My friend Natalia Mello, former Miss Olympia, right? Awesome human being. So if I can do that, then that is going to help draw people in, but it's also they're gonna deliver.
Yeah,
the people in the seats are gonna have an incredible time. You're gonna facilitate connectivity. They all get to meet the speakers. The speakers are all people who immerse themselves. Everybody wins. And then I get, some character who, again, I've never interacted with before. And the first thing is, hey man, do you need a speaker? It's like, and I get it.
Yeah.
I would love to be in a position where I can literally, this podcast, it would be incredible if you could take the 5,000 coaches who are deserving, emerging, to bring them on this show to give them the audience. But here's the mistake that everybody has. And I think a lot of people think this, well, if I just get on the stages, if I just get on the podcast, it's going to make me.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get the followers and I'm going to get the clients. But it's completely backwards.
Yes.
And again, I still do feel like, I'm on top of that fence post sometimes going, how the hell did I get up here? But the reality is everybody that you've had on your show, everybody who I had on my show, everybody who's spoken at the events that I've hosted, they've been doing this very successfully for a long time. They've built very successful businesses. We've talked a lot about RP Strength. RP Strength is an iconic business and brand in this industry, right? Yeah. Great people behind it. You mentioned Luca again. So Luca, with Vigor Ground.
My God,
that's a great gym.
The mentorship he has.
All of the things he's been doing, right?
Yep.
Incredible stuff. And those are the people who disproportionately get these opportunities and invitations. So what I try to tell coaches is show up, be of service, subscribe to shows like yours, listen, take notes and wisdom, sure.
Yeah.
Get out to events, meet people, be a real human being. And yes, meet the speakers and the high profile figures who are involved because they're almost always incredible people. But it makes me think.
That reminds me, David Gray was just on the podcast and he said that there's this common idea that the good guy never wins. And he said, I disagree with that. He said, actually, the opposite is the exception to the rule, that the guy or the gal who's a total dick, who only cares about themselves, who's willing to step over your dead body to get to the top. Sure, they make it. But the people who really make it, particularly in our space and industry, that's so relationship centric, are good people who are well-intentioned, who probably have a pretty sophisticated level of emotional intelligence. And they're able to stand the test of time and continue to build relationships. The good guys win in our space more often than not. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, because our world is small enough that most everybody generally knows reputationally other people. And I promise this will be the only name that I will say in a negative light, and deserves it because of being a jackass with when Halliburton went down with injury. But Joel Seedman is a good example that the industry just doesn't take him seriously and puts up these self-serving posts, including one about how his coaching could have prevented the Halliburton injury, which of course was just a big, fuck you to Ben Bruno, who is awesome human being.
Everyone who knows anything about Ben.
What happened in the wake of that post?
Yeah.
Like Joe DeFranco went nuclear and called him out.
And shout out Joe for that.
Yeah. And a ton of other people went at Joel. And I'd always treat him as like, he's a nice guy. We just don't take him seriously. But then now it's gloves off. No more. Like, you're going to pull garbage like that. You're fair game.
Yep.
And that guy will continue to like fool the people he fools with this stupid clown, posting social media, all this ridiculous shit. And that'll fool people. And there'll be a new supply of people who enter as consumers, and they'll get fooled and they'll get fooled. But eventually they're going to find Ben's stuff and Joe's stuff and the credible people in our world. But Joel Seedman is siloed in that I'm not aware really that he has any like significant relationships with anybody else in our world that respects him.
Right.
That will actually support him, bring him on shows, et cetera, et cetera. And again, I don't love calling out negatively an individual in space, but it's a really good example in this. And again, he does dumb shit that deserves some.
I love that just as an industry, we're all in agreement. It's just like if you're, it's like the way he's
Did you just use the word agreement, which is a real word? Do you remember the incident that brought that word to like popular light?
No.
There was a thing. So it was Fred Durst used the word I think it was at an award show or something, and then like got lit up But then people are like, no, it's actually a real word. So they're making fun of him, but he was right.
This. Yeah, I was a big Biscuit fan too.
This goes back a long time, right? Okay. This is probably like around the time when Durst.
Shout out Fred Durst.
Was like right around the time when he was like alluding to maybe being involved with Britney Spears. I'm dating myself.
Yeah. No, I remember.
Right? Before she's dancing with knives on her Instagram. And like shout out Britney because like, you know, I grew up on her music. I was a little older for it, but like, okay, cool. This is a successful young woman.
And listen, who doesn't understand a good mental breakdown?
A decade and a half of like free Britney conservatorship, and then all of a sudden she's dancing with knives on her Instagram. And
this is what you people wanted. Britney's free. Look what you've done.
Maybe there was a reason for all this. I don't know, right?
Andrew. Hey, you know what?
I said before the show that Tim, by an order of magnitude, does something better than any other podcast host that I've ever listened to, and I listen to a lot of podcasting, which is lighten things up, make things funny, draw humor out. But I'm actually proactively, I'm good for about one funny thing per year. I burned it on you. Now we're good. And if I've got you laughing on air, that tells me we're doing okay.
Honestly, I feel, listen, we're going to have this, and it already is chock full of wisdom and
no, it's going to be a waste of an hour and a half of all of your time. I'm sorry. I apologize right now.
We're using one of those clips on the Britney Spears bit for sure. That Ben the editor, shout out Ben the editor.
I'm going to get
count it.
You know what? In modern day and age, I'll probably get canceled over it. That's the worst thing I'll do all year.
The Coach 'em Up podcast is now powered by Vald, the global leader in human measurement technologies. Whether you're working with elite athletes, gen pop, or return to play populations, Vald's tools are designed to give you objective, actionable data to help drive your decision making. From NordBoards, Force Decks, and Smart Speed timing gates, all which I use, Vald helps you measure what actually matters. Their technology is used and trusted by the NBA, NFL, EPL, and NCAA, as well as thousands of high-performance clinics and facilities around the world. If you're serious about performance, recovery, or precision coaching, Vald gives you the best tools to test, assess, and improve. Because remember, if you're not testing, you're just guessing. Follow the link below to learn more and request a demo. Zach, what's the best training app on the planet?
It has to be Train Heroic. Gone are the days of sending the old crusty PDF. Now we have a sleek new app.
It's easy to use. There's videos with descriptions. You get to track and log your weight, your reps. There's a community chat function. You can submit videos. You can get feedback.
How about the leaderboard, Tim?
I started using Train Heroic first as an athlete and someone who wanted to learn. Now I use it as a coach. Athletes and other coaches can go and be a part of my training community and get results.
Whether you're an athlete, coach, or just like to train, use the link in our description to find out how you can train on the best app in the world.
And join us on Train Heroic today. You've mentioned the turtle on the fence post, and I think to help give the listener who maybe isn't as familiar as I am with who you are, tell me a bit. Let's talk about how'd you get on top of that fence post, Andrew? Who are you? What's your background? How'd you get into coaching? And what is your career? What have you done in your career a lot?
I was
till today
not the 20-year-old passionate coach, freshly minted, who started in the industry. I actually have a Bachelor of Commerce degree from Memorial University of Newfoundland in the east coast of Canada, where I grew up. I worked in banks and other bullshit and bars. My family owns a neighborhood pub, and they do extremely well with it. So there's bar business in the family. And so I owned a nightclub for a while, and that was a chaotic fun and a chaotic disaster.
Dude, how old were you when you owned the nightclub?
26, 27. So picture partying upstairs in the upstairs room of this bar with Collective Soul back 21 years ago after a concert they played in Newfoundland. Okay. So life was different back then.
Yeah, you and I would have.
Now I found
seen the sunrise a time or two together.
a lot. And I know your backstory. So there we go. Okay. So going back a little bit, high school sports, played sports, everything, cross country skiing, medalist provincially when I was a kid.
Wow.
A lot of high school basketball. Mm-hmm. Of course, growing up in rural Newfoundland and becoming 6'2" as a power forward doesn't really open up a lot of opportunity for playing basketball at a higher level. Great. Okay. I never got the hockey bug when I was a kid. Thankfully, my parents, and shout out to my parents, they were so ahead of the curve. A lot of really nourishing home cooked meals. They encouraged us to participate in everything in sports, encourage music. And I never took to music either. I just love and listen to a lot of music.
Yeah.
But they were incredible swimmers. I don't like swimming, but they cross country skied. My mom being a teacher, and we were in this little school, a town of 500 people. And so there was a lot of the time we didn't have a formal basketball coach. So my mom would just stay and work in the school for a couple hours and let me and my brother and the members of the team just play basketball in the gym for a couple of extra hours. Mom, shout out mom and dad. They're superheroes, right? Growing up watching them do this sort of
Incredible.
stuff. Anyway, so then I wanted to change the scenery, leave St. John's behind. I flew to Edmonton, Alberta. I had a couple of friends there. Started working in a casino of all things. Poker dealer, poker room supervisor. And, I'd really gotten back to the gym the way I'd been diehard in the gym in my early to mid 20s. The bar world kind of conflicted with it a bit.
Yeah, it's hard to
I get back in there again. Yeah. And then, so I'm working out at this gym, and then the staff just kept bugging me to come work there as a trainer. I kept saying no until I just quit the casino. I was like, this is bullshit. So I finally said yes. And I remember the end of the first week going,
how old are you here?
I'm 32.
Wow.
And that's 15 years ago. And I remember at the end of the first week going, I can't do this. I'm overwhelmed. I can't do this. But it's funny. Then you go back and you look at, guys, go back and look at your old Facebook posts. There's two reasons to do it. One is because you can delete anything really stupid that might get you in trouble later on in life. Thankfully, it was really none of that, but just as a precaution. And then two, sometimes some really cool stuff will take you back in time because we revise history and we don't remember things the way they were. But there's a post, 2 weeks into my career, and I, just was seeing promise, and I was excited, and I was like, cool. It would be really interesting to tell that guy, hey, hang in there.
Yeah,
this is where it's going. But I got hired at this gym, put my head down, worked tirelessly. And I remember an early manager. So there's a concept, I think most people hopefully listening will understand the idea of anchoring, right? And we usually say it in terms of price. But I remember asking an early manager, how many sessions did an average trainer in the company do? And per month. And he told me. So okay, cool. And so that number got rooted in my mind. So I just worked and spent time on the floor and got referrals, and they assigned me stuff, and trainers would leave and their clients would want to come to me. And so I got busy fast and stayed busy, and I would consistently hit or beat this number. But then, within a fairly short amount of time, it was very apparent that this wasn't the average trainer. This was the top trainer in the company. And so within certainly a couple of years onward, for the 6 years in the company, I was on the numbers, the sheet year, I was the number one session performing trader in the company. And third by dollar value, but first by actual sessions sold. Because you have someone literally a Dean Somerset who's selling at a higher rate, or there's another guy who'd been around the company for a long time. And I never got complacent. It's always okay, I'm not taking my foot off the gas with this. And I think this is important for all trainers. And I'm a different generation, but you get trainers coming in the industry or young thinking about work-life balance or boundaries or whatever, and it's man, that's risky, because I don't think you can be halfway in. And while it doesn't fix everything, being really busy and earning a great livelihood tends to solve a fair number of your problems, your stress, as long as you're smart about how you spend your money and live. That's a topic for another day. But anyway, so early in my career, I got onto T Nation, so I started reading, again, Ben Bruno's stuff, or Tony Gentilcore. Hey, there's this Dean Somerset guy, happens to work for the same company as me. And then I got he did a lot of internal con ed within the company. So that was a big leg up, and he's become a significant role model. And if you guys aren't following him, just seriously, dude is a pro. He's great. So, and then I would have gotten on to Dr. Lane Norton stuff and nutrition pretty early, and then Mike Isertel and RP Strength pretty early. And so I'm just consuming all this stuff, and Joe DeFranco and, the icons of the industry, and Jonathan Goodman. And then I left that company because I could just see the direction they were going, went out on my own. And it was shortly after that I met my friend Dean Guido, started a podcast together. And right around the same time, because I've been reading both T Nation articles and the blogs of the people who are doing that, and I love writing, so I started studying books on writing, but I wanted to get a website, and I just wanted to write a blog, and I was just going to do it for me. I didn't have any grand ambitions of where it would lead, but So my best friend made me a website because I couldn't do it. She's great. She wouldn't take any money for it. Like, God bless her. She's one of the best humans in the world. And so I started writing some stuff. And of course, the podcast connected me to a lot of the industry's who's who. And I remember seeing Danny Schugert, who's one of the longtime authors and editors. And she was interacting with someone. So I sent her a Facebook friend request, a message. And I said, hey, I've been reading your stuff on Teenage for years. Love it. We have a podcast. Would love to have you as a guest, right? She was excited to do it. She jumped on, recorded pretty quickly. She already started diving into my media and she saw that I was writing stuff. Also through my travels, some of the people who picked the weekly best articles from the PTDC, do you remember the Personal Trainer Development Center? They had a weekly best article thing. They don't do it anymore. It's John Goodman's site again.
Okay.
And so a couple of my articles kept getting picked up there, and then so then Danny turns around and invites me very sheepishly, like, hey, would you, consider writing for us at T Nation? I'm like, oh my God.
Fuck yeah.
Kidding, right? So I said yes to that, put a lot of work into a pitch and an article. They accepted the first one. Then after a couple, what weren't quite their speed, got it dialed in. And then it's just feeding them articles. And then Chris, the chief editor, every once in a while, he'd message me like, hey man, you got anything in the pipeline? We're getting a lot of shitty submissions here. You get the trust of your editors. Because
that's pretty cool.
Probably read like 20 plus books on writing.
Now you become a bailout guy when the other people are delivering.
Exactly. And then, of course, you get a reputation for this stuff. And then next thing you know, Generation Iron are like emailing me out of the blue, like Generation Iron making the pumping iron new generation of movies.
Yes.
And they're great. So they wanted me to write for them. And some other opportunities came along. And eventually that became, a shot with bodybuilding.com and then Muscle Fitness Magazine. And eventually it was a connection to Men's Health and you name it, right? Industries, who's who of these sort of publications. And once you get in with a few of them, then great. Now, the industry's changed a lot, right? A lot of these publications no longer function the same way. Hey, we're here in Austin, like I've written for On It. But my editor, shout out to Sean Heisen, just OG, awesome human. He's moved on, and T Nation have gone inward with a, more of a community versus like the outward articles the way they used to. And a lot of stuff's changed. Bodybuilding.com isn't what it used to be at all.
God,
changed, right?
Man, anyone listening to this, I'm 35. If you're from the age of really my age and then anything 10 to 15 years above that, there was a long fucking time where your source for supplements, for articles, for workouts, it was bodybuilding.com. I mean, that or T Nation.
Yeah.
Right?
And so here's another interesting thing. I'll come back to the concept of gatekeeper in a second, but right now, there's a lot less opportunity to write for these publications. I mean, Elite FTS still is out there. Dave Tate, shout out again. But there just isn't as much. Now, I'm encouraging coaches look at Substack because there's a lot of discoverability there. But for a really long time, and the industry you came up through and the industry I came up through, the authorities and the people that we followed were largely platformed by these gatekeepers, if you want to think about it. It's very similar to the way the music industry worked. Because if you think about it, growing up, how did you learn about music? And again, forget the fact that now it's all like, Spotify and SoundCloud and Apple and YouTube. Man, like I was listening to, I would sit in front of the radio with my cassette tapes.
Yes.
To wait for songs I wanted. And I would like hit record when they came on. You were hoping that the host didn't continue to talk for 20 more seconds into the song, which was such a piss off. And that younger generation, like, are you kidding?
Yeah.
Yeah. There was no YouTube. There was none of this sort of stuff.
No.
Right. And I would buy CDs from Columbia House where you'd get like mailed like so many, and then you'd have to buy so many more within a certain amount of time to fulfill your contract. Or sit in front of, I'm Canadian, so we had Much Music. Your guys, MTV back when, a cliche bad joke, but like when they still played music videos.
100% though. It's true.
And the record companies paid for radio distribution and TV distribution. They decided who's who. I recently posted a picture, and it was this glam metal band, and I was like, hey, does anybody recognize these guys? And only a few people did. It was Pantera before Pantera went
shit.
Like full on like groove, thrash, whatever, right? They used to be a hair metal band. In fact,
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Everybody just like Google Pantera, like glam rock or whatever, and you're going to see Phil with hair Okay.
Wow.
Right. And like, I don't even recognize Dimebag. Vinny, the drummer, you can kind of tell it's him, and Rex. It's like, but yeah, it's Pantera.
That's fucking
so they
nuts.
morphed.
I didn't
it's
know
like,
that.
You know, another Canadian reference, like Alanis Morissette. You remember Jagged Little Pill? You ought to know.
One of the greatest albums of all time.
Grunge songstress. Well, if you go back, she was a pop artist in Canada.
Beforehand.
And Matt LeBlanc of Friends fame is in one of her music videos from like when she was a little pop star. Okay?
I didn't know that.
So there's all sorts of examples. I mean, even a lot of the Seattle grunge stuff, like Kurt and Nirvana were just what they were. But, you know, if you go back to Mother Love Bone, which is the precursor to Pearl Jam, that was pretty like cock rocky, right? It's still the influence of the late 80s. And Alice in Chains did a little bit of that. And Soundgarden, their origins were again in that 80s sort of like hair rocky type feel. So if you think about how all these bands and artists came out and you're like, oh, this is raw, this is authentic, whatever. A lot of this stuff was actually
kind of curated.
It was curated.
It was a little curated.
I mean, the ultimate example is the Sex Pistols, right? The rebellious punk icons, whatever. They were a manufactured boy band from a British like department store.
Yeah.
They weren't ever actually supposed to play music, as I understand the story. They were just like looked a certain way. Turns out they sort of played music badly, whatever. Then they became this iconic thing. But they were literally in sync for punk. I shit you not. Okay. So, but again, we're thinking about people getting through the gatekeepers. Okay. Yeah. So now with the fitness industry, you no longer need to go through the gatekeepers. You no longer need to be part of the old email affiliate networks where everybody support each other's programs and ebooks and what have you. If anybody remembers that. Vince Del Monte, Skinny Vinny selling his programs, right? Or, you know, and some of the people were largely part of these successful networks. Shout out to Molly Galbraith, Girls Gone Strong, right? And very, very good friends with John Berardi of T Nation and Precision Nutrition fame, right? Which is how John grew big. And if you were in those networks, or you had significant success as an operator, which usually went with, again, Joe DeFranco, and Joe had written for T Nation, and or it's Eric Cressy, again, their success with their business, him and Tony Gentilcore, again, are T Nation guys. So it all kind of worked together. And even with RP Strength and Mike Israetel, number one, he's got a PhD, right, which gatekeeps itself. And, you know, the guy's uniquely funny and brilliant. And they built this really successful thing with RP sort of siloed, but even he was initially platformed by Juggernaut Training Systems. And
that's right. Smith. I remember, you're taking me back right now, because when I first found Mike, it was him doing a podcast in a parking lot with Chad Wesley Smith, and he still had some hair. And they were, I don't even remember what they were talking about, but at the time I was consuming a lot of Juggernaut strength stuff. Yeah. Shout out Chad.
So, and I know I'm taking us through a little bit of history of this stuff, and for the newer coaches, you guys are like, what? But the reality is now social media changed the game, right? Now, if you are good with social media and savvy, I still believe that because a lot of people are going to go straight to just video-based social media, and there are going to be some people who actually showcase their credible career success and what they've done. Great. And those people will have enduring success as long as they wish to leave Pandora's box open and continue to feed it and be a presence within the industry. But it's also given a lot of opportunity for, you know, and all the power to them, entertainers. Yeah. And, you know, we whip around the word influencer kind of in a negative way, whatever. But people who may not have a lot of substance. Now, usually with time, they reveal themselves.
Yep.
And I think some of them just stay as entertainers anyway, adjacent to the fitness space. Cool. All right. You're an entertainer. Great. No problem at all. Right. But we also have, of course, your grifters who walk around grocery store aisles and throw tantrums at Fruit Loops, shit like that.
Yeah.
And they can generate big followings. So, you know, and I can understand why coaches get really frustrated, but the tools are there. If it's something that you aspire to and crave and you want a bigger audience, and I'll get into that in a second, then go learn, you know, social media, video-based media, go learn and I'm not a big video-based guy, right? I rode a different wave, and even eventually I need to do a little bit more of it. I know that I'm also time constrained with all the things I juggle.
Of course, yeah.
There was something in there. I paused on something and I've forgotten my place. So,
well, you know what? So as you were talking and you were telling me, you and I have almost identical career paths in the early portions of our career, where I wasn't a trainer or a coach. I was working in bars and nightclubs and just jobs. I was just taking jobs. And then, my first job was selling training, and then it was being a training manager. And then I was at Lifetime where I was a trainer and a training manager, and just hours after hours, rep after rep, hands-on experience with a wide variety between middle school, high school, collegiate athletes to, 80-year-olds to housewives to you name it. Right. All the while trying to consume as much as just obsessed. That's really the word. It wasn't like I'm doing it because I loved it. I felt driven, and so many years of doing that, and then eventually arriving at a place where like it just wasn't doing it for me. I knew there had to be more, and I wanted to see what else was out there and explore that. But something you've talked about too, and we talked about this off air. You have over 25,000 training hours.
I am still a full-time in-person personal trainer. I do online. I have the podcast. Yeah, speak at stuff, whatever. All that other stuff, the writing even, because I've written for all the things we talked about, but the volume of it and what it pays is a drop in the bucket compared to what the in-person coaching still pays. And I mean, I love it. I have a home basement studio. I still contract at a gym that I've been at for years. And I think that's the most stable thing. I think here's another important frame. For a very long time, a lot of the names that I threw around earlier who were the early in on online coaching.
Yeah.
They were operating in a very narrow niche. And it was the people who wanted access to them who would ask them, hey, do you do distance programs? And all of a sudden they would build these businesses on the side. But the mainstream everyday person didn't consider online coaching to be a thing. People who were in the bodybuilding sphere, because the bodybuilding world is really what started all this stuff, and they would do meal plans and programs for their competitors, and they would hand them this stuff and send them off, and they would go do it, right? So that's the origins of that. But it was growing and growing. And of course, Jonathan Goodman and his stuff with Online Trainer Academy, et cetera.
Yeah.
He was one of the big ones who saw, okay, this thing is going to grow. It's going to get into mainstream. And it started to do more. And then COVID came in, and then we saw, it's like same thing with Peloton, right? You saw 10 years of growth within the space of like 6 months.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, coaching online and having a coach who is not there working with you became an option in the eyes of the everyday person. Now, not everybody's still going to gravitate to it, but it became a mainstream. It reached that tipping point where now everybody knows this thing exists. It's normalized. It is an option.
Yep.
I genuinely believe that people, especially in a world where we're seeing more automation, we're seeing more AI-based stuff, and everybody throws around AI, blah, blah, blah. We're seeing, I think people are going to go one of two ways. There are going to be the people who self-select to the automated, sanitized relationship, like any sort of interaction with people, very predictable. They're going to chat with ChatGPT. They're using ChatGPT as their therapist. And until AI literally goes rogue and we have Skynet, you hear the occasional thing where like something horrible happens, like literally someone like commits suicide after talking to ChatGPT, like right. Jesus Christ. Assuming that's not an urban legend, I think that's actually happened. Outside of that, this is going to be ridiculous, but this will make sense. I was on a podcast with a Muppet named Brick.
You showed me this. You introduced me to this. It's brilliant.
I showed up virtually to this podcast. I get invitations. I'm like, all right, cool. I'll come on the podcast. And this dude setting up, he's like, hang on a second. Up pops this puppet. I'm like going, what the fuck is going on? So of course I fed a ton of my friends into it, but I was the one who had no idea it was going to be a puppet.
Yeah.
So I got into this and I use this example. You know how there are people, rare, but people who will marry their sex dolls.
Yep.
Okay. Why did they do that? You tell me.
Because they're afraid of actual human connection?
Yeah, essentially. Or they're afraid of the uncertainty that comes with real human relationships. It's the uncertainty part.
Yeah.
They could dictate every aspect of it and whatever level. And it's the same thing as people who will go and they will have effectively a relationship with an OnlyFans model, like the chat stuff there.
Right.
That stuff, pretty popular, right? Mm-hmm. And then we're already seeing AI-based OnlyFans models, which is some dude running the account.
Yeah,
so some dude is talking to 100%. Another dude.
Yeah.
Right? Cool. All right. And to each your own, if that's your speed, great. All respect. But I think in this case, the consumers are not processing that.
Yeah.
But they're going to get exactly the experience that they want to curate. You can't do that with real human beings.
Yeah.
But I believe genuinely, I mean, walking around in society, most of the people I know are either in romantic relationships or seeking them. And despite the lack of true certainty, even with a ring on a finger or whatever, like, I mean, divorce rates are what they are.
Yep.
I think that people overwhelmingly like seek that out.
Yep.
And I think it is a funny analogy for what people will look for in real coaching versus algorithmic systems-based coaching. And so I'm seeing, I mean, a surge in interest in in-person coaching. I don't know if it really went away. I think just COVID kind of stifled it a little bit. And I know a lot of online coaches who are struggling, and they're online and they all make a really good play and look like they're doing fine. And they look around, they think everybody else is thriving.
Right.
And they think they're the only one struggling. And they've been fed this, I'll say it's a lie, but it might be a lie for them that I've gone to enough of these events over the years that, and if anybody listening can relate to this, I felt like the messaging was that to progress in your career, you have to go online and build something. And that was the next step. And there was always this conflict because I was the trainer, despite all the other things I was doing, was still very much in person. I felt that it was more stable. I enjoyed it a lot more. I do not want to live entirely behind a computer.
Yeah.
And as time went on, I'm at more of these events and I see more and more, and I'm around people who talk about their 7-figure businesses. And when like people, we've said many names that have genuine 7-figure businesses and they don't talk like that. They don't use that language.
Right.
Someone is saying like, my 7-figure business, there's a pretty good bet that
it is not in fact 7 figures.
Well, it might very well be, but they just may not be open and honest about the 7-figure expenses and the 7-figure stress and headaches. And all this
Yeah.
other
What are
stuff.
you netting? Yeah.
And, you know, some of the business mentorship world, the online business mentorship world feeds this sort of stuff. And in a way, I think there's a little bit of a house of cards there. I think online coaching is a bit winner take most. You know, you get people like your girlfriend who just crushes it, right?
So insane.
Right?
Yeah.
So shout out Kelly. And what's the platform they all use? They all use Ladder. Right.
Ladder.
And, you know, I followed a few other people. I think it's Bobby Maximus, I think is one of the guys in that stuff. So, and I wasn't familiar with this. So I look but again, I think sometimes these are people who self-select. They're really great with media.
Yep.
They may have built really successful businesses anyway. I mean, RP Strength, you know, it is an online coaching company. They've now thrived on the YouTube space.
Yep.
And they've built educational materials. But I mean, that's years of runway of hard work.
100%.
And there's a lot of other examples of these successful coaches in business in the industry. And I think a lot of people are being sold that, yeah, go online, build your 7-figure business. You know, here's how to scale. The word scale at this point has been abused so much. Usually it's repellent for me. And there are going to be people listening who are going to know how to do this right.
Yeah.
Okay? But I think it's also being force-fed and sold at you by some of the business mentorship space. And some of them are brilliant. And I've said some of the names and I support them 100%. And some of them I think they're grifty.
Yeah.
And I think that they're, you know, charging like a high, it's a, I won't call it a Ponzi scheme, but because that's not technically accurate, but I do think some of it's a house of cards.
Yeah.
Right. And you're just hopefully feeding more people into the bottom. And then have you actually ever built a successful online coaching business? Like really? Or is your successful online coaching business selling other coaches on online coaching? I think you guys get what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I worry that sometimes coaches are being, who aren't ready for it or wouldn't be equipped to do it this way, are being told that this is what you're supposed to do.
Right.
Come spend all this money to learn how to do it, when I really do believe that in most cases, the people you're looking up to in the industry are still coaching real people. They may be managing other coaches. I mean, like we've mentioned RP Strength a lot. Mike and Nick, they were personal trainers together a long time ago. They've genuinely built something where they're not coaching people in person anymore. I get that, but Lucas still coaches people in his gym, right? You still coach people. They did it. They did it.
Yeah. And I think to your point, it's like they're, you know, and I'm speaking from experience here because it's what I did. And you see exceptions to the rule and people who would probably get labeled more as a pure influencer, or the term you used, entertainer, who sell programs, you know, right? But I think the people who have longevity, credibility, they almost all have one thing in common. They trained people in person probably for a long time and got a lot of reps, similar to yourself, similar to me. And then also too, with the, Ponzi scheme, idea of like, you're being sold a marketing plan, a business ideal that you can grow and quote unquote scale if you just follow this 12-step process that's going to cost you $10,000. And you can be just like me. If you haven't put in the hours on the gym floor, training people in person, and I think that's what a lot of people do. They say, oh, here's the shortcut. Here's the thing that's going to get me to where I want to go. I can skip the line, right? And then in 6 months, I'll be making $30,000 a month or whatever it is on online coaching. And that, much like the person who's like I was talking about earlier, who is the dickhead, the person who will do anything at all costs to achieve status and fame. Does that happen sometimes?
Sure does.
Of course it does.
But does it
but you're wild for betting the house on that. You know what I mean? The practical approach is do the prerequisite work that is going to actually sharpen your sword and give you the wisdom and knowledge and experience to be able to speak with confidence. And then those things can happen, quite frankly, organically, if you're just really good at your fucking job.
And to your point, there are a number of very popular, visible figures in the podcast space, in the author space, who the stories that their brands are built upon have either fallen apart. They've been incredibly called out for.
Well, they were curated as well, much like the music.
There's a lot of curation, but sometimes people it was someone who just started out with a lie and then things got really out of hand. And then what are they going to do?
Yeah, you can't back. You can roll it back.
Tim Kennedy is.
Yeah, I was waiting
Tim
for
Kennedy
you to
is
say it. Yeah.
the obvious one now because he's now come out and admitted like he had said he'd had certain medals that he didn't have, and I know I've seen some YouTube stuff on him basically like verifying that many of his stories, the people who were there with him are like, this is all rubbish, whatever. And I never paid attention to him. I just know this. Sorry, Jay Shetty, the monk. It's been incredibly debunked that he was ever a monk. There's a really good story in The Guardian about this guy, and there is something about he had all these colleges that he was his life coaching school or whatever was affiliated with, and they were all contacted. They never heard of him, so all of a sudden that stuff goes on. So listen, if you like him, okay, but there's a lot of evidence to suggest that this guy's whole backstory is bullshit. And then, I mean, Nicole Arbour, the comedian, she outed him years ago for plagiarizing. You remember all those like soulful, spoken, poetic things he was saying in his videos right at the time when Facebook was pushing video hard, and they had him and Prince EA. And I've never heard anything bad about him. He's probably legit, but they were like the poster children for their video push back before video was everywhere. People forget this shit. We didn't always have it because like our phones and the network didn't actually have the bandwidth to be able to do that much video, which actually is why. But Jay Shetty was pushed really hard by Facebook. And well, can you imagine being the guy who just cooked up this whole like fairy tale story and started doing this stuff? And then all of a sudden, you're the turtle on top of the fence post, except built on some lies. And again, Nicole Arbour went through and found, I think it was hundreds of examples of these videos. And yeah, he'd ripped them all from other people on the internet, never given any credit. After the fact, he turned around and started crediting.
I see.
And there's several other examples of high profile.
It's a don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness situation. It feels like.
Yep.
Man. That's wild to me. But that's not dissimilar from what we see in our space all the time. And it's the same essence, just a little bit different delivery method. And you touched on this a little bit earlier. If you do my plan, my program, subscribe to my training philosophy, buy this product, you'll bulletproof this. You'll never injure this. You'll perform at a certain level that's only possible if you consume my content, right? And what's fascinating to me is how much success that can truly generate, because it does work. It does work. It may be a short-term But like, it's like, oh, you make a shit ton of money, 3 years. Everyone thinks you're a piece of shit. Do you care? You're on a beach somewhere.
But how many successful operators aren't in the public space because they never crave status? They actually like to hide behind the scenes. They built very successful businesses that actually serve a very niche audience. So therefore, they don't go the route of public content creation stuff. You listen to Alex Hormozy.
Yeah.
And if you ever read any of his books or consumed his media, he wanted to stay on the other side of that. But then he tipped over and embraced the public-facing figure. And now all of a sudden, he's very ubiquitous and everywhere.
Right.
But again, there's survivorship bias and all this stuff because we think, well, we have to go, big forward-facing content creator, brand, whatever. Mm-hmm. You can actually go a different route, which is to serve the niche. And I hate that word because I think people get carried away with it, but you can serve a community. Yeah. You may never need to actually be a forward-facing content creator. You can get into networks of people who are affluent, who want your services. Jonathan Goodman's book, The Obvious Choice, it goes into a lot of examples. It's a really great marketing book. I can't recommend it enough. But there are a lot of people who are really successful who are unseen. And in the broader world, how many successful business owners operate pretty mundane, routine, unsexy, unflashy, not NVIDIA, not Apple, not your tech startup company. And they do really well. They have a strong business model and they just never create any of the fame. And I can't remember who this quote is attributed to, but the best case scenario in life is wealth without fame. The worst thing is fame without wealth. And where do we go when we think about that? What do you think about with that statement, fame without wealth? What do you think of?
Well, it's funny because as you were speaking, what was coming to my mind is actually, I think what has happened societally is there's been this shift that fame is wealth. Like there is a social...
Tell that to the E-list celebrities who keep appearing on celebrity junk television, right? The contestants. I think... what is it? Reality TV show contestants.
Yeah.
Right? Because I'm old enough to remember Survivor season 1 where they all thought they're going to be superstars and Hollywood famous and what have you. And none of that shit ever materialized. Then we went on to season 2 and people show up for the train wreck and the spectacle, but they don't really care about these people on an ongoing basis. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
There's very little substance behind the overwhelming majority of them. But I can't imagine having that kind of fame and notoriety, even if it's fleeting, but without the financial security to insulate yourself from the worst that comes at you. Does that make sense?
Totally. Of course. The Coach 'em Up podcast has partnered with Eleiko.
Let's go.
Not only is Eleiko found in 85% of Power 5 schools, but they also offer at-home solutions from racks, flooring, rigs, barbells, bumper plates, your favorite accessories like straps and weightlifting belts, you name it, Eleiko's got you covered. Go to eleiko.com/coachemup and get access to the same equipment that they're using in the best facilities with the best athletes on the planet. This episode is brought to you by friend of the show, David Gray of David Gray Rehab, creator of the absolute game-changing foot, ankle, and Achilles program. To date, it's helped over 8,000 people, including Zach and myself, get back to running, jumping, and playing pain-free. This program isn't just for athletes, it's also been used by coaches and physios in the NFL, NBA, and Premier League, as well as every other major sport. And if that wasn't impressive enough, you can get the full program 15% off lifetime access when you click the link in the show notes and use code TIM at checkout. Now, back to the show. One thing that stands out to me about you, and it became evident and apparent, and it's one of the things that I think it's a testament to who you are, and I mean this in a very positive way, the relationships that you have throughout the expanse of the fitness umbrella. Also, not only the fact that you have these connections, the quality of them, the depth of them, the longevity of them. And in consuming your content, something that's resonated with me is this concept, this understanding, the fundamental difference between building relationships, and people say that all the time, but what does that actually mean? And then, the difference between that and networking, because networking was the word for the longest time. You got to get out there and network, right? And then also now I think there is people start to understand on a scale that relationships, it's so much more important. But I think what people apply to building relationships is sort of the same mindset that they would apply to quote unquote networking. And they're not the fucking same.
I mean, I think it all comes down to how transactional is someone. And you could go kind of the Hormozy route and say, well, all relationships are sort of transactional because you're in some way getting something out of them. And I know what he means, but at the end of the day, we want to be around people we like, right?
Yeah.
Sure. I function on this principle. I believe in building a bank of grace with everyone, and like whether individually or broadly. And of course, there are exceptions. There's people that I've crossed paths with that I never want to ever interact with ever again. They're rare, right?
Yeah, sure.
Some people filter themselves out because whatever, I find them distasteful. But the overwhelming majority of our world are great. So if I could approach both the way that I show up in person with someone, or show up via my media and give, it's the Gary Vaynerchuk jab, 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 right hook, except just lots of jabs, minimal hooks. And even if you make an ask or a sell, I want it to be something that's so valuable to people that they treat it like it's still a give, whether it's throwing a conference or, this will be the first public hint of it, but I'm working on a course for in-personal trainers. It's probably going to take me months. I want to make sure I do it great. And I want it to be something that like people are like screaming, banging on the door, take my money because it's going to be that good. Okay.
Right.
That's all I'll say about that.
So you're saying that you're prioritizing having a good product over appearing.
Well, that's a conflict that our industry often has. Sure. And I am not looking at it as another vehicle to status. I'm looking at it as a vehicle to actually help a lot of people, because I look at how inefficient the process was for me to learn and develop all these skills. And because people like you and me, and use the word obsessed, and I agree, we're obsessed with the process of learning and getting better at this stuff. Not everybody is, or not everybody has access to the people or the environments. I happened to start in the industry at a time where there weren't as many gyms. I started a big gym. They had a good salesperson at the front end. I got filled up fast. Circumstance and timing worked out really well. There is survivorship bias in this story, okay? I could very easily have had a couple of bad breaks and washed out early on.
Totally.
I'm not here on this podcast. I'm doing some other sort of career, right? Looking back and going, oh, okay, cool. That was a stop along my life's journey. But that's not what happened.
Right.
So the Bank of Grace idea, the best example I can give, I went to an event in 2017 in Kansas City, the OG Fitness Summit in Kansas City. And they had a all-star world-class lineup of speakers. It was a small insider thing, maybe 200 plus people there. And I went down to it and I probably came away with 100 new Facebook friends. This is 2017, Instagram, I hadn't really like fully embraced yet.
Yeah.
But I just hung out and I drank and I just had a great time with all those people. And yeah, I got to meet and connect with a lot of like, we're talking big name industry leaders, but also everybody else who was there who was just like me. And this wasn't the plan, nor do I think that chasing like public speaking opportunities should be anybody's real focus. But two of the people I met there became friends with. As it turns out, they both hosted events. My friend Tim Arndt, who hosted a really cool event in Spokane. And then my friend Jeff Aker, who hosts the NSCA Provincial Clinic in Alberta. Cool. So what do? I go and attend their things in 2018 because I'm like, I'm hungry to learn. I want to learn more stuff. So I showed up, and I showed up to both again in 2019. And then there was a couple of years where nothing happened, but Tim rebooted his in 2021. Traveling down the US was a bit tricky, but he said, by this point, my media had grown. I'd been ready for Teenage for a while and some other things. He's like, hey man, I want you to come speak at this. And I tried to turn it down. He's like, no man, I want you to do it. So I'm like, all right, well, I better get ready for this. And I really I dove into books and really prepared and and it went really well. And then that just blew the doors open on some more invites. And then by 2022, when Jeff was redoing his provincial clinic for the NSCA, he invited me to come speak at that locally in Edmonton. And that turned into a Rocky Mountain regional thing later that year. And then some other stuff. And then in the end of 2022, and this one I'm going to enjoy. So a little bit of self-indulgence here. I got invited to speak at an event, and it was the original bill, which still to this day is nuts to me. It was Lane Norton, Jordan Syatt, myself, and the Hormozys.
Wow.
And I'm like, what? So you can understand the turtle on the fence post thing here, right? And as it turned out, I wasn't speaking with the Hormozys. I was one of the people who was replacing the Hormozys. And there's a couple other people they brought in on top of it all. But the event rocked. It was a really cool opportunity so that these things happen. But would I have gotten in the door on these things if I hadn't just gone and to this one event and just met everybody and treated everybody equal instead of just being up the ass of like the
one
speakers at the
person.
event.
Yeah, right.
Exactly, right. And connect with people on social media. And again, do this stuff, show up, support without expectation return. Do not keep scoring any of this sort of stuff. And yes, every once in a while, someone is going to come along and they'll be a taker.
Yeah.
But more often than not, there's someone who just like is well-intentioned, just they're not afraid to ask for stuff. And what I made fun of earlier about people asking to come on the podcast or speaking, in a lot of cases, these people are just like, they're being fearless, they're asking for stuff. And I understand the whole thing. If you don't ask, then sometimes things don't happen. I've got a different sort of attitude, but that's shaped by my experience that I've gotten the invites because I just keep showing up and supporting other people.
Yes.
Right? It probably may be wise for people but the key is can you back it up? Can you bring audience? Can you bring listeners? Can you put butts in seats? Are you qualified to be there? And are you qualified over and above the other people who might get those spots? Does that make sense?
Totally. It reminds me, you talked about earlier, because this was my experience and this is my survivorship bias perhaps, but I've seen it enough times play out. Just training on the floor, working in a gym, showing up, being in the space, being available, treating everybody the same, generally being a likable person.
Goes a long way.
It goes a long way. People want to work with people they like. And in sobriety, there's a term, it's like, don't leave before the miracle happens. I tell young trainers that all the time. Training's a war of attrition. Eventually, someone's going to leave. Someone's going to make a career change, whatever. If you're there and you've been doing a good job and you've been that person, and you're going to be in a position to suddenly increase your client book by a tremendous amount. It's the same thing professionally.
It's happened to me a lot. In fact, a lot of the clients that I've had over the years, many had worked with other trainers and they had good experiences in most cases, but that trainer happened to leave the industry. A friend of mine, she left to become a police officer. One of her clients who I'd interact with, because I'd interact with her, he turns around one day and he's like, I want to sit down with you and talk about training. And then he's been a client, for 6 years since then.
Yep.
So, and it's just happened a lot. And again, there's a fine line where smiling, here's a funny one, but for real, just smiling at everybody in a gym floor. Yeah. Like, I do not understand why this is a hard concept to grasp, but then some trainers
just be pleasant.
Yeah, fuck. But then you get other trainers' clients. There's a fine line. Smile at them. Don't be like so up their ass. It's obvious that you're trying to poach people, and you're not thinking about that as long. But just be nice to everybody.
Just be pleasant.
But the weird thing that happens is you're not being predatory. You're not trying to poach.
Yeah.
But then, like, our industry is often quite transient.
Yep.
So oftentimes those people will turn around. They've also observed you with your clients. Like, the appearance of professionalism you have if you're in a public space gym goes a long way.
It does.
Okay.
Yeah.
Being focused on the client. I can't even believe I have to say this stuff, but I see so many trainers, and a personal pet peeve, I'm not a big fan of trainers using their phones. Maybe you're recording stuff on your phone.
Right.
Get a tablet. Okay. No, but it's like it changes you can be like texting your girlfriend on the tablet.
Yeah.
Versus like on the phone, you're recording programs.
It looks totally
the optics are flipped, right? For what people think.
Totally.
Simple things like that. But I mean, that's almost too basic to talk about here. If you can't get that stuff right off the hop,
you're going to have a hard time.
Yeah.
Well, in taking it a step further too, it's like that same sort of philosophy when it comes to, and maybe this isn't someone's goals professionally to eventually transcend the four walls of a training space. And by transcend, I don't mean necessarily that other things are better. I just mean that your interest as a professional grows outside of just the box that you're in, right? Which has certainly been the case for me. A lot of those same principles apply. Truly. Like, I think about your experience at the conference and all of those same things that you were doing on the gym floor. It sounds like the exact same things that you were doing at the conference. You weren't up anybody's ass, but you were kind, considerate, polite, you were interactive, you were willing to put yourself out there. And truly doing those things enough time, it's like a skill. It's like anything else. The more you do it, the more opportunities that you get in a very non-needy, organic, truly in the true sense of the word, organic way. And it's so special when it happens like that. It means more.
I'll give another example. Same event. One of the speakers was Pete Dupuis. And Pete is the business partner to Eric Cressy's Cressy Sports Performance. Right? Pete's a great guy. He's co-owner.
Real quick before, I'm noticing a thread.
Go ahead.
companies, businesses, organizations in our space, no one does it by themselves. It's always a partnership or a collective of people. Is that a fair assessment?
Or friends and colleagues who mutually support because you're in an environment where you are surrounding yourself by successful people. It's a proverbial, who are the 5 closest people that you have in your life. Right?
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of people who are solo operators, but their friends are other successful people. So you're anchored to what's possible versus, just a little side quest. Who listening has had a period of time where you look back and you realize that you don't hang out with certain friends anymore? I have a ton of really close friends who are not in our industry. They're amazing people. But there are some friends that drifted. Sometimes there were specific incidents, but you had to leave behind.
100%.
And you kind of can think back and realize I might not have continued to make progress in my career if I'd spent all my time around those people. Whereas the people I've gravitated to and spend time with, when I'm sitting down and having dinner with, again, a Nick Shaw or a Luca Hosvar, who are, again, very close friends of mine in the industry, that can't help rub off on me in terms of their thoughts and ambitions and work ethic. And if you spend any time around Luca, the guy's a madman for
he's incredible.
What he's capable of doing.
Incredible.
So you can think, I've got another gear. Right. And if you surround yourself by those people, then great. I know I drifted off on something. I'm trying to remember what it was. Oh, the story about Pete Dupuis.
Yes.
This event, and I'd heard Pete on fitness podcasts before this event. So I was excited to meet him. And Brett Contreras was one of the headliner speakers. Alan Aragon was one of the headline speakers. And they're very big social personalities. People obviously gravitate towards. Mark Fisher was there. Mark is a beautiful soul, really, really flamboyant, positive sort of person. But Pete was quietly sitting in the back of the room. And I mean, this is also revisionist history knowing him, but he was probably the only non-trainer person there because he's the business guy.
Right.
So I actually went back and sat down with him and talked to him and told him, I was like, I was excited to hear you talk. I've heard you on podcasts, whatever. And we just chat for a while. And he became a pretty quick friend. He's done my podcast a few times. He'll happily come on anytime. And in a month's time, I'll be going down and hanging out at an event that him and Mark Fisher for Business for Unicorns are doing in Denver, just to go hang out because they've been bugging me to come and hang out with them. Right? And so I'm excited for this. But
yeah, very cool.
This is a guy who you think that all the people who are speaking, I can't count the number of events I've been at where like some speaker may not know a lot of people there. And there may be somebody there. It's like you go to something and Mike Isertel's there. Guess what? I've walked around the Olympia with Mike and the RP crew. And this is actually before YouTube went completely bananas. Mm-hmm. And the lineup, people like, Mike, we couldn't go 2 feet. Someone's talking to Mike. Or when they actually did a booth, official booth, the lineup was as long as for Jay Cutler or Phil, right? So I can't wait to see what, is going forward with that. But, everybody wants Mike's attention. But, and Mike's great. Love Mike to death. But funny enough, I actually gotten to know Nick, Crystal, and some of the other team even more. And I think it's not about like, ooh, how can I be strategic about this stuff? It's just, again, just treat people like real humans. And you'd be surprised how many of these super successful people in our industry or the people with bigger profiles or both are quiet personalities. They don't seek the spotlight. And it's the wallflower syndrome where a lot of people are intimidated by them so that they won't even go and interact with them.
Totally.
Right. And these are.
And then the people who do, it's like, yikes.
It can be.
Yeah.
It can be, right?
Yeah. So it's probably, thinking about it from that perspective, it's like you find someone who comes up to you, asks you how you're doing, treats you normal, have a conversation. It's refreshing. I get that from my athletes a lot. And I it's Zach and I both will get DMs. It's like, how have you gotten to where you're at? And then usually it's like, how do you get over like the quote unquote imposter syndrome or learn to understand? In fact, I was just having a conversation about this yesterday with someone who just isn't used to being in a setting with quote unquote higher profile athletes or influencers or celebrities and stuff like that. I have for me, it comes naturally because I've had a long history of life where I've gotten my fucking teeth kicked in over and over and over in various different ways. That's brought me to this place of understanding. If I can reach out and touch you, there's nothing fucking different about you and me. And I'm not like operating, walking around consciously thinking that. That's just my perspective on people in general. I'm no better than you, and I'm no worse than you. We're here. I may respect you or don't, given the case of what you've put out into the world. But when I interact with people, I don't give a fuck if you're a Pro Bowler or if you're just walking into the gym for the first time. If you're there and you want to work, you're going to get the same version of me. I'm going to meet you where you're at, but I'm not going to treat you any different. That has served me very well. And it hasn't been like this intentional thing, just kind of the way I've operated because of the way that, what I've gone through, frankly. And I've seen enough interns and been around enough people when they do get in settings or situations where they're confronted with someone that they idolize or that they look up to, or someone who has a social status that is widely received as like being on a platform or being large. They fucking forget how to act, man. People forget how to act. And it's almost always never coming from a place of like, we've touched on a few times where it's like, trying to be manipulative or get something. It's just people get excited and they don't know how to handle that situation because they haven't been in it before. And it always fascinates me too. But I have noticed that's something that I've kind of, and Zach as well. Zach's one of those people. The version of Zach you get on the podcast, in the meeting room, or at the bar is the same version of Zach you get all the time.
He does not seem like he's fazed by anything.
He's not. Zach's the best. Shout out Zach. We love Zach. Yeah.
I didn't get to see him here.
I know. He's too busy being a badass strength coach for the University of Miami men's basketball.
Congratulations to that.
I know. But anyway, I say all that to say I'm interested to hear your take on that. If you feel like I'm onto something there, or if you've had similar experiences, because these people that you interact with and rub elbows with and that are your friends are oftentimes someone who's new to the fitness industry. They would say, "Oh my fucking God, XYZ?" They might have a different response to it.
The overwhelming majority of the people I've met and interacted with in the industry are pretty down-to-earth, normal, real people.
Totally.
The reason why we sometimes build things up is because we've crafted a story in our own mind.
Yeah.
This goes big. At the heart of every bit of coaching I do, every bit of career stuff I do, is I challenge both my own, but I ask other people questions about what is the story, what is the narrative that you have crafted about this to give yourself permission to do the thing that you did. And oftentimes it's in the context of nutrition, over consuming on like daily calorie needs, et cetera. That's like one of the things I like asking people. And it's got to be framed in a non-judgmental way, right?
Right.
But it's also true in our careers. Like, what is the story we've built up in our minds about meeting this person or any type of interaction? And if we remember that everybody is, the overwhelming majority of the people in our space have got some degree of imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Right. And yes, there are outliers where you get someone who people whip around the word narcissist a little too easily. But
yeah, they do.
I've come across a few people who
might meet the criteria.
And what I've also found is those people tend to eventually expose themselves.
Yes.
Fine, right? But if someone gives you kind of the ick, trust your instincts. But by and large, I find that most of our industry is just genuinely giving it. But here's the correlate here. That's why these people have achieved the success of the position they have in the industry, is because they continuously show up. They're genuinely decent human beings. If coaches, and I know this conversation is probably danced around a lot of like career development stuff in the grand scheme of things. Every interaction you have, and this is kind of a Naval Ravikant thing, if you haven't read the Almanac of Naval, it's a great book, easy read, is have the other person come away better from your interaction.
Yeah.
Right? From whether it's a business deal or from a personal interaction. Can you turn around? Like I was just thinking, you were talking there, and my mind drifted for a second, but it drifted because, and this is how I think, I thought of a fitness event whose founders, assuming that they go ahead with it this year, I want to introduce you to them because they have hosted in Texas. And I thought you would make a really good presenter at that particular event. That's where my mind went, because that's how my mind always works. So like, how can I, connect this person for this podcast opportunity, or how can I open doors for this person? My mind just goes there. That's fundamentally how I'm wired. Now, you can't do it for everybody in every context all the time.
Yeah.
But if somebody's got a proven track record because they've worked hard on building their own business, building their own media platforms, for all the people who are looking to get on the podcast and stages, like, do you host your own podcast?
Yeah.
Have you ever started an event? Here's a really good tangent. I said earlier that all the speaking gigs I've had, I do not believe has directly put clients into my business. I definitely know that there are people locally where I am who've kind of searched online, and then they find that I've written for a bunch of stuff and what have you. And then they find social media, and then they see a larger number in front of social media. And some people will assign some value to that. Okay, fine, whatever.
Sure.
But the majority of my clients are referred to me, and just word of mouth over 15 years of operating full-time locally, right? That's the main driver.
Yeah.
But for the coaches who would love, and I think it's a great aspiration to speak on stages and get in front of other trainers, but I do not believe that will actually help you with the success of your coaching business. There's a great book, easy read. It's called Authority Content. It's literally a playbook on how to do this. Focus locally, whether it's volunteering or setting up local educational seminars for the people you want to coach. If you can get into local corporate wellness speaking, this is the best play of all. Get in front of the local business leaders. That's a better place to actually put most of your networking effort. And again, it's what I was talking about earlier. People are successful, but maybe unseen in our industry's status game, we can call it that. And if you get in local corporate wellness, one, it pays. It actually pays. These other speaking events, they don't pay, and you have to take time away from your work.
They're like,
now,
we'll cover we'll cover your room and half your flight.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Now, guess what? I was just speaking at an event in Toronto. I went over to Newfoundland to see family. I came down here for a couple of things. Yeah, I got 10 days away. Cool. I'm enjoying it. That's absolutely worth it. But there's also 10 days away from earning income in my in-person business. You also cannot just be on all the time and only think in terms of money. You can't do that.
Yeah.
But if you look locally, whether again, it's volunteer stuff, whether it's like lunch and learns, whether it's again, that corporate wellness angle. And if the book Authority Content explains how to set up something, a seminar, but then actually document it, film it. And you can use that. Maybe it's the long form piece of itself could become an email lead magnet or something along those lines, or it can be put on your YouTube. But what it does is it just demonstrates the authority of you doing that. You can chop it up in smaller pieces, show it on your social media. You can use it a lot if you'll take the time and pull out the good clips. And the act of preparing for it will help organize your thoughts. And it'll give you more ideas on how to do it better. It's reps, it's practice as well. But it will put you in front of the people who actually might hire you.
Yep.
Right. And they see you as an authority. And that's actually going to feed your business far more than getting on these stages. Now, here's the funny thing that ends up happening. You do this enough and you grow in that space and your business is more successful. And then all of a sudden you're faced with a bottleneck of, well, I don't have enough time to coach all the people. So I have to think about other avenues in order to create educational resources or programs or something that end up, quote, scalable. And this is a very long time horizon behavior. But guess what? You have to start and do it. And then over time, you're someone who has really got on lockdown, and maybe you're also showing up at the industry supporting, and you're doing such a good job of it that someone in that space says, hey, I want you to come and present at my event. Hey, I'd like you to come on my podcast and talk about what you're doing here. That is how this stuff works.
Yep.
But as you said earlier, people will always look for shortcuts.
Yeah.
The shortcuts by and large don't work.
Yep.
Right?
No.
Because everybody that you're paying attention to, you like in the industry, overwhelmingly, years and years and years of unseen reps before you saw them explode. And yes, I do know a few people who've seen insane explosions on social media because they timed a wave really well. There's a couple of trainers. I used to mentor them, and I will not take credit for their tactics that had them blow up on their social media, but they were the spearhead of the video-based that. First of all, the key is having a British or Australian accent.
It really is.
That's it. That's a cheat code. For the
it is a cheat code, isn't it?
We're fucked. Like, there's no hope, okay?
It just sounds so good when they talk.
And then they'll you've seen the videos of this stuff, and they'll walk around in the gym, and there's like quick cuts, and there's like self-deprecating humor and little sexual innuendos. And And I'll shout them out. It's like Steve Keen, Steve Craft Coaching, and then Rachel Henley Fitness. They're awesome. You want to go watch how they do this stuff? And they blew the hell up. I mean, they both gained, I don't know, 700,000 or 800,000 followers in probably the space
Christ.
of, I would say maybe 6 to 12 months, right?
Fuck.
Went nuclear. And they both got really smart. They got their email stuff set up really quickly. They had ways to capture online businesses. They had ways to capture the sheer magnitude of the surge of interest. But guess what? Everybody started copycatting that stuff. And quite frankly, James Smith had been doing this shit for a lot longer. It's just funny that no one had really like pushed it too hard. But again, going back to the whole thing about like Jay Shetty, our media, like our phones and the networks did not actually have the bandwidth to really handle a lot of video-based media if you go back really far enough, right? But I think a lot of the stuff, the origins were probably in James Smith, what he was doing. And it got rehashed. But now all of a sudden, it's formulaic, everybody's doing it, and you get this, I can't remember his name, but this Muppet who like, he's like, I don't know why this is still a thing. And then does some, and then you're like, biomechanically, what you just said is bullshit. But okay, fine. He was smart with video-based media. Okay, like fair enough. The people who don't know what they're talking about will eventually expose themselves. Fine. Yeah. But yeah, everybody started copycatting that sort of thing. And yes, there's potential there, but they're comparatively rare. And they almost have a special gravitas, a special, I call it X factor, that plays really well with media, video-based media. They're entertaining. Now, in the two cases, the two that I explained, they also would use good sound training principles, nutrition, evidence-based stuff, and weave it into this formula.
Yeah.
Right. And so they knew how to do it. But there's also a lot of people who use that formula and they're spouting bullshit.
Right.
And fine, you can try to chase that path. It's like picking lottery numbers. You can try that. Or you can just put your head down, treat your clients amazing, like nothing else exists but the client in front of you.
Yep.
Be of service. Various people say this, like if you only had the one client, what would you do to make sure you never lost that client, grow more? Like how would you treat that person?
Yeah.
Now treat all your clients that way. Okay.
Yeah.
Voracious learning to make you better, but at the same time, trainers also like to learn things that they're already really good at. And I honestly think that for most people, a little bit more technical training know-how, and again, it's fun, great, there's room for it. It's so asymptotic in terms of how incrementally you're getting better, when I think a lot of coaches would actually be better going into behavioral psychology, communication stuff.
Yeah.
And those things, like if you go read books like Talk Like Ted or The Presentation Secret to Steve Jobs, you want to go and speak on stages. Those things will teach you that. But guess what? They're also going to make you really good at storytelling and the in-person client stuff. It's going to make you great at your sales experience.
Totally.
Right? All that stuff. But if you get really good at the behavioral change stuff, I'll shout a book, The Coaching Habit, Michael Bungay Stainer. I love this book. Just asking great questions. Just get better at asking questions and turn off advice mode. How many trainers like really want to go? Client says something. Ooh, let me show how smart I am. Let me show you how much I know. Like I'm going to tell you what.
Turn off advice mode.
Turn off advice mode.
Yeah.
And ask a question, because guess what? Most of the people actually know the answer. Ask the questions, dig a little deeper, and then you go into, all right, well, what was the story? Because I do this all the time. That, and if any of my clients are listening, they'll laugh. Like they do something, and I've created an environment where there's trust. I'm not judgmental. There's no criticism for the stuff that they do. And then you do that, then they'll tell you shit, and I'll go, okay, cool. What was the story in your mind when you did that?
Totally.
And then all of a sudden they start thinking. Then you get really cool answers. Okay. And then
you get to know people really well.
You get to know people really well. And that's good coaching, but is just asking better questions. But if you guys lean into that stuff, and then good business stuff, good marketing stuff. I mentioned John Goodman's. I know I'm like throwing around a lot of names here, and it's like, oh, he's name dropping. It's like, no, I actually think that all these people are really incredible. And if any of you guys are listening and I've thrown a name that you don't recognize, just go search them up, go look at what they've done. You're going to see like some pretty impressive track record of career accomplishment. And these are people that I've been following, paying attention to, have gotten to know for years. And I piecemeal together very, very inefficiently, brute force listening to podcasts and reading books and going to seminars and courses and hands-on experience.
Relatable.
And I wouldn't change it.
Yeah.
But if you guys go right to the source on these people, these resources, it could accelerate the path for you. And so dig into the resources I'm throwing at you guys. But it's abundance mindset, because I'm not interested to be like, hey, no, me, go dig into my things, all me, worship me. You know, it's like, no, these are the people that heavily influenced me. Some of them are key role models of mine, and they've gone on to become great friends of mine and very good supporters, and they've opened really cool doorways to me. But it's because I showed up for years to literally support, platform them, put them on my podcast, sharing their books on my media. And I wasn't doing it to curry anybody's favor. I was doing it because like I believe in this.
Yeah. Fuck yeah. Man, I can't believe time's gone by so fast. We've got like 7 minutes.
All right.
But we're going to do a rapid fire with the segments because it'll be perfect. It's the best way to do it anyway.
All right.
So, first segment, it's brought to you by Squat Wedgies. Shout out Squat
Wedgies.
Hey man, our first sponsor, our longest sponsor. Thank you to Squat Wedgies. Use code COACHEMUP15 for 15% off at checkout. This is 3 things. Andrew, what are 3 things? There's a trainer, a coach. There's probably many who are just getting started in the space, whether it be performance or Gen Pop, whatever. They're just getting started. What are 3 ideas, attitudes, actions, philosophies, concepts, 3 things people need to enact, hold, or actions they can take, 3 things to help them get to where they are now to long-term success in the space?
Can't overstate this enough. Sorry. Respond promptly to people. If you get inquiries, and I don't mean like my phone notifications are off. So like, but I get back to people promptly. But if someone inquires about training with you, respond to them quickly, book them in front of you quickly. You'd be shocked at actually how important this is. Okay. And then ongoing, because it drives me nuts when I interact with people who are like profoundly slow to respond to stuff. Okay. Early in your career, coaches, and I get it. Like if someone's a young family, boundaries or whatever, but young emerging coaches, be on top of that stuff, respond to people. And I'm not talking instantaneously, okay? The second thing, I already said it, is train yourself to ask a lot more questions and get good at asking good questions as opposed to just trying to demonstrate that you have all the answers. Okay? And then 3, I mean, I think this is an entire episode of think in terms of building a bank of grace with the other person in front of you, be of service, have that person just come away better from your experience, okay? And we've gone in super depth on that.
Yeah. It's wonderful advice. This is Rant and Rave. It's brought to you by Train Heroic. I use Train Heroic. Zach uses Train Heroic. A lot of coaches we love and respect.
Shout out to Train Heroic. I'm switching over to them right
You
away.
are?
Yep. One of my online
Oh my
programs.
gosh. Here we
right
go.
over them. Yep.
Let's go, man. They're fantastic.
Good people.
Have you interacted with Josh?
Yep. And
Oh my
Josh at
God.
events, hung out, met with Josh.
He's the reason I'm there. I spent 15 minutes with him on the phone. I was like, the CEO of the company is having a conversation with me.
Yep.
So shout out Josh, shout out Train Heroic. Click the link in the show notes. Join me, join Andrew. Rant and Rave. So what's a rant? Something that you're seeing in our space, in our industry as a whole, that you see and you're like, God, I'd like to see a lot less of that. And then we'll bring it full circle with a rave, something that you're seeing that you're like, I love this and I'm excited to see more of it.
All right. I'm not original in saying this, but social media, the platforms are becoming more mature. We're seeing a larger rise in the volume of content produced rather than the growth of the platform. So there's more ads. Therefore, it is harder to get your stuff seen. Engagement is down. You have to be better on the algorithm. And a lot of people are getting caught in the what I call the enragement trap, which is a lot of the stitch-based video. And maybe some people can sort of do it well, like shout out Goob, like taking out literal child predators.
Yeah, that's pretty fucking cool.
Hell yeah, like Goob's doing good work. But for a lot of the rest of it,
Yeah.
it gets clicks, but I know people who do this sort of stuff and they're not necessarily doing as well as you think. And people are showing up for the outrage as opposed to necessarily for you. And I think it can be, and then I see the people who've done this and gotten the engagement from it. And then if, let's say they backed off or they've noticed that the engagement's not there, it's actually affecting their emotional well-being. I know people who are afflicted by this, and that is not a nice trap to get stuck in. I've generally speaking avoided the confrontational, combative side of social media. My social media is sure done well.
Yep.
But I'm much more focused on consistently trying to be valuable through the short form media, it is what it is. I still hope it's like making a difference in someone's day, but the long form resources that I do, it's a longer play. I get the allure of the combative toxic stuff, but just be mindful of even if you think you're on the side of good, are you contributing to the toxicity of the environment? Just be careful that you know what game you're playing there. So there are good guys who do that game, but even still, it's just something I opt out of because I just don't want to think. My mental health is good. It won't be good if I go down that.
I'm totally with you there. I'm same.
And Rave, I just think that there's an incredible world. If we focus on the negativity, we can get pulled into it. I think we have an incredible universe of ethical, caring coaches, just like the people listening, if you'll look around for them. Look at the people who are on the same journey as you are. Again, it goes back to the make everybody else come away from your interactions better off. And over a long enough time horizon, it has been one of the major catalysts for some of the really cool opportunities. Is one of the reasons why I'm here and the way we connected, right? Those people are out there. And if you spend more of your time complaining about what's wrong with our industry on the internet, you're actually training our audience to distrust our industry. If you can turn around and just be patiently an example of good, I think it wins out in the long run. I think that good people will gravitate towards you. You have to show up to support and be where those people are, and that can be virtual, that can be in person. Look for the great events that are coming up. There's still some awesome events in our industry. And I like going to them. I will be at some of them over the course. We'll see what comes up, but I'll be at them. And I think that goes unrecognized because that doesn't get clicks.
Right. Yeah. Okay, this next segment. This is brought to you by David Gray Rehab. Man, David Gray was just on the show. Ironic, actually, we ran out of time. I didn't have time to do his segment while he was on the show. So weird, but it happened. His foot, ankle, and Achilles program is absolutely fantastic. I used it. Zach used it to help recover from his Achilles tear. It's 15% off and you get lifetime access when you use code TIM. If, Andrew, you weren't a coach, what would you be and why?
I have no idea. And that's a cop-out because I didn't seek to be a coach. I fell into this.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, I had a business degree, and I remember coming up through. I was going to go to medical school. I had this vision of what watching shows like ER and what being a doctor would be like. And I just didn't like the time I spent in labs because I saw university as a social experience and wanted more social time, which in the long run was actually a very good thing for me. And then I imagined, sitting in a corner office in some business thing. But then the reality was getting out there and I'm like working in a bank and you're a personal banker, but really you're a salesperson.
Yes.
Which, guess what? Personal trainers, we are salespeople too, right? So it's funny. It's hard to get away from that stuff.
It is.
But then, bounce through life and some other stuff, and not everything is as glamorous as sometimes it might seem. The question scares me. And I don't know if you've ever had anybody answer that, because this career has given me opportunity, and though I dislike the lens, I'll use the word status within the industry that I could not have imagined. And it feels nice, but it's a byproduct of all the stuff we talked about.
Right.
I think I fell backwards into that, right? I didn't seek it. I don't think I would love it if all of a sudden it was all taken away in a moment. Does that make sense? Most
totally.
people won't comfortably admit something like that. So what's my story behind the question, right? Because I also got to challenge my own narratives. And it's like, I would struggle to know what I would do, because I've also been shaped by the experience of this career for the last 15 years and the skills I've learned within it. So could I turn around and transpose those skills into something else? I probably wouldn't even have those skills.
Yeah.
So it's a very elaborate dance and to avoid an actual answer, cleverly enough. But oddly enough, the question does, I think, existentially threaten me a little bit. Does that make sense?
Of course.
I don't know where I would be.
Well, you know what? I'll accept that as an answer. And the reason why is because it's one thing to not know for the sake of not knowing. It's another thing to be uncertain because you have a complete grasp and understanding of who you are and what you've become as a byproduct of what you've done. So I think that's acceptable. I don't know as it's perfectly, by the way, normalize saying I don't know as an answer. That's powerful. Next segment is overrated versus underrated. This is powered by Vald. Click the link in the below in the show notes, request a demo, and like myself, you could be using smart speed timing gates before you know it. So going back to just the general landscape of the industry, what are some things about training, social media, you name it, that are overrated, or a thing that is overrated? And then what is something that is underrated?
I mean, the strength and conditioning coaches aren't going to like this one, but this is strictly through the lens of training general population, which is still the overwhelming majority of what our industry deals with. Is just complex periodization is overrated. It just is. Okay. I think it's really important for athletes, high-level athletes, and anybody who's going into a time-lined sport, whether it's bodybuilding, powerlifting, et cetera. But you can do a lot of, and I think this is not to say you're winging it all the time. There's no plan. But with general population clients, I mean, like a lot of complex periodization, just it's not good use of the coach's time because life's going to change the plan enough. So I think you just have to have the skills to be able to navigate with it. And that's a bit of a cliche answer, but I also think it's true.
It's a great answer.
What is underrated? I just keep coming back to this, is just asking people questions. Again, I think that coaches, maybe it's out of insecurity, maybe it's early in a relationship to try to show people, hey, look, I'm valuable. Like, you spent money on me, therefore here are answers, here is advice, here is wisdom. And of course, there is always a place for it when you are thoughtful about it. But if you can actually rewrite the way you do this to think of how can you frame the statement you were going to make, the advice you were going to give, as a question to ask the person. And don't just reframe the statement as a question because you're really just saying the statement.
Yeah.
But it's probe with great questions. And the more you do it, the more you'll A, recognize where to ask great questions, and B, what those great questions will be. Because I can't tell you, ask these 5 questions.
Right.
It depends exactly on the conversation you're having. So if you can train yourself to ask a lot more questions, and it also demonstrates an interest in the other person versus hearing your own voice.
Totally.
And that has a profound impact on your relationship with the person in front of you, making them feel seen and heard. And I think it's hard to measure, but I think on average it's going to have a dramatic impact on your client retention.
Yeah. Last segment. This is unsolicited, solicited advice. This is brought to you by Aleco. I still can't believe they sponsor our show. Use code CoachEmUp10 for 10% off everything you can buy through the link in our show notes. 10% off Aleco products, people. Come on. As you leave here today, I'm assuming at some point you'll grab some lunch. And let's say in this fantasy scenario, you're sitting at lunch and there's someone next to you. And for whatever reason, you feel compelled to share with them a random piece of advice. And this piece of advice can be anything in the world. It can be about life, training, you name it. You're going to hand out some unsolicited. Now I'm soliciting the advice. What would that piece of random advice to this random person be?
And I believe this because this always comes in the context of trainers seeing other people in gyms. You don't know someone else's story. You don't know what's going on. Do not insert yourself in and give unsolicited advice. And I firmly believe that. I'm dodging your question again, but I actually do believe it too.
That's actually really good advice. Yeah. Steer away from unsolicited advice. Yeah.
I mean, again, it's the flip. It's like, okay, if you really want to go talk to someone, ask them questions.
Yeah.
Ask. Okay.
Yeah.
Ask. Don't march over and go, hey man, can I, show you how to do that so you don't hurt yourself? Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, there's the idea of like perfect form and like the relationship between form and injury risk. Mm-hmm. You get enough experience in here, you realize that there's no standardized form. Mm-hmm. You don't know what someone's injury history is, why they're using the range of motion they are. Just don't make assumptions about that stuff. I'm a hard ass about this, right? Mm-hmm. And yeah, if you really want to start a conversation, because I think trainers, they have this compulsion that they need to go and fix everything and show people. Again, it's like, I need to show people how smart I am. Go in, ask a ton of questions, ask them what they're training for, what they're in that. Okay, good. And then if they start asking you stuff, cool. But someone's far more likely to be interested in interacting with you and developing a relationship if you ask them a bunch of just questions about what they're doing, show interest in them, versus come in firing off advice.
Yeah.
This will make you a better coach.
That's great advice. Andrew, dude, thank you for coming on the show. This was a blast. We ripped through our time. You and I were talking off air. I'm going to have to start making these 2 hours. It's been requested, so it's going to happen. Where can people find you and connect with you?
All roads go through Instagram at Andrew Coates Fitness, COATES. Yeah, you can check out my website, www.andrewcoatesfitness.com. My podcast, where they can go and listen to your episode recently, is called the Lift Free and Diet Hard Podcast. And yes, it is a play off of Die Hard 4.
Let's freaking go.
Here's a piece of advice. If you're starting a podcast, do not, it's too clever a name. It's actually not a good podcast name. It's too clever. I'm able to trade off of like the rest of my media and the fact that I've been doing it so long, but come up with a more clear, concise thing that actually is more searchable on podcast platforms.
That makes sense.
So it is not a great podcast name when you're looking at it through that technical lens.
Yeah.
Okay. But either way, I'd love to have you guys check that out. I've had the industry's who's who on recently, and I'm pumping out more. So it's been a fun playground.
Let's freaking go.
But most of all, anybody who has found this episode through my audience, and if this is the first episode you've listened to, I listen to this podcast regularly. Okay. I love this. I told Tim again, you are just so much better than any other host I've ever heard at just like bringing out fun and lightheartedness in this stuff. Your personality shines. It's obviously why you're a great coach and you work so well with young athletes or athletes of all walks of life. A number of people I respect, friends of mine, have been guests. Mike Izzutel's been on, Luke Hosvar has been on, Muscle Doc Jordan Shallow has been on. So Kenny Santucci is a good buddy.
Yeah.
Great dude. He's about to do Strong New York, depending on what time this is aired. But just scroll through. I know Nick Shaw's about to record on here. You'll get Crystal Guevara eventually. You've got a killer lineup. So please, guys, go and check this out as well. You will get a lot out of this as well.
Thank you. Wow, that's incredibly kind. I appreciate that. Thank you. Everybody, follow, consume his content. He's one of the good guys in this space, and we're grateful to have him on the show. Andrew, thank you to everyone here who's made it to this part of the show. Thank you for watching, listening. Remember to subscribe and support. Peace.